valuable. I don't think there's anything in this world more valuable than meeting a new human being and conversing and exchanging knowledge and life experience. I think there is nothing on this planet that is more valuable.
Yeah, I
It's not
agree.
money. It's the other human and the reflection, because I see when you start looking at other people are a reflection of you. If you hate them or like them, it doesn't matter. And that's a wonderful, you learn a lot.
And now here is singer-songwriter, broadcaster, audio-video artist, entertainment agent, and your host. It's the master storyteller himself, James Kevin O'Connor.
Hey, everybody, guys and ladies. Thank you for coming back to Podcasting Your Global Career. Really delighted with my guest today, but before I get into my guest today, I would like to just inspire you guys to please share this episode. I know there's someone out there who will find this content really, really valuable. And also, you're helping this show immensely by sharing it with somebody you know. We are out in California today, and my guest is Michaell Magrutsche. Oh, I am excited about this interview. This man is so challenged and so creative. He has dyslexia and he has dysgraphia, which is a hand-eye coordination challenge, but that does not stop Michaell from doing the things that he wants to do. We also get into a great discussion on this broadcast about the value of human interaction through artistry. So without any further ado, let's strap up our seatbelts. We're taking a ride to California today from the Music City to hang out with Michaell Magrutsche. Michaell Magrutsche, my guest today on Podcasting Your Global Career. Welcome, Michaell, to the show.
Thank you, James, for having me.
I saw your bio is really cool. The fact that you co-produced some things with Robert Evans, who, for those of you folks who don't know, he was involved heavily in the Godfather productions. And you were also a city arts commissioner for Newport Beach, California. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
You've got a creative,
and I have no
blood.
Education. I have a creative blood. Art was my education because I am extreme neurodiverse and dysgraphic. So I have dysgraphia, and it's I basically had to learn everything myself. I am completely self-taught.
So can you explain dysgraphia to us, for those of us who don't know what that is?
So when you write something 5 years ago, James, if you write something 5 years ago and it's legible, I can read it. If I write something an hour ago, I lose the context. My brain cannot decipher the context. I mean, I can read a word. If I write a word in caps, obviously I can read that.
Right.
But if I write something in context, that I lose the context of it. I cannot recall the context.
Wow. So this, how did you overcome this situation and end up being such a creative?
I was forced to be creative. This was my it's savior, and it's literally creativity was my that made me feel like so many adolescents, made me feel you belong in some way in the humanity. And then further on, I just could do creative jobs. I couldn't do anything where I need to be systemic, where I had knowledge of accounting, or because I couldn't read. I couldn't read. I couldn't regurgitate things. So, and I had to learn to be in the moment and create in the moment. Or if I would have prepared for this podcast, it would be devastating. It would be completely stuttering and everything. So I have to be always in the moment and handle whatever is whatever you give me, and I had to learn that. Obviously, it took me 50 years to run against the wall.
Well, fortunately, I never allow anybody to prepare for one of my podcasts, including myself.
Yeah,
It's more
yeah,
fun to figure it out, on the way there. I have your notes, and that's all I
yeah.
need because, I love the fact that you have such an interesting and creative and amazing career, regardless of having this challenge in your life. I mean, it's really quite
Mm.
astonishing. So, a couple things I want to get to. I want to talk a little bit about, if you're okay, Michael, about the co-producing with Robert Evans, and what was your finest moments with him, and could you tell us a couple of stories about some of the things you guys did together?
Mhm. So I was in television documentaries, and before the film festival, there is basically sales fairs, and they're called MIPCOM or MIP. And at one of those sales fairs, I was just a salesman, a television program salesman, that did productions, that did documentaries. For some reason, and this is what I tell everybody that is in the creative field, you are out of control. You're never in control, and there's nothing planned that actually works or doesn't work. So what makes me successful might not make you successful. And there's a lot of luck and a lot of things that fall into place. So somebody came to me, his associate producer came to me, and I had no idea who Robert Evans was. I'm from Vienna. I was born in Vienna. And I just tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Are you Michaell Magrutsche?" And obviously I was. I had a name tag. I showed him. I said, "Yes, I am." And he says, "Mr. Evans, next time you are in LA," because I was going back and forth from LA because of documentaries. I was going back and forth from LA to Vienna and back. And in the middle, we did these sales shows, to sell our programs. And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Yes." And he said, "No, next time." So I had to ask around and said, "Who is this?" They said, "Are you crazy? He's the longest president of Paramount. He has Love Stories. He Rosemary's Baby. He did this." I said, "Somebody's doing a joke on me." I was absolutely nobody. Nobody. I'm still nobody, but it's like I have nothing to relate to, or now I can say I worked with him, I co-produced with him. But then I didn't have anything. I was just a lost soul that tried to make ends meet and to do what I could do. So I was educated on the spot, obviously, by all my American friends that were in the Palais des Festivals in Cannes, and and then when I came here, I wasn't even thinking about it. I had his card, but then I settled back in. I had to take care of all the business that I accomplished in overseas, and I took his card and saw it and called him and said, "Okay." And his butler picked up and said, "This is Robert Evans' residence." And I said, somebody gave me your card. "Oh, it's Magrutsche." They knew who I was. And there was no proof why they should know that. So he must have looked at my work or something. And it's still now, it's still not clear why he did that. And then he said, "Yeah, come over." He said, "Hello, is Robert Evans, come over." And I came over, and then a beautiful friendship evolved from that. And it was really a friendship because I invested in a documentary. I also helped him, find an investor in another friend of mine that took part in this documentary. And actually, I've never heard this. He paid back the money because KTLA didn't want to create that, didn't want to show that documentary. for some reason.
So you were
And
in Vienna. You were in Vienna creating documentaries originally, and then you somehow got connected to Hollywood. You kept coming back and forth.
yeah, yeah.
And that's how you
But I wasn't calling. I was America because we worked with a company. I had I was a part of a company here for UHF stations, and then I did projects. For example, I had a magician, and I brought him to the television station in Vienna to participate so literally not a professional. I was just doing little jobs,
right.
and so we.
So let me stop you for a second. Let me ask you, what possessed you to originally come to California? Like, you were working in Vienna, and then was there some reason why you just said, was it a project, or you just had the idea that California is really where I need to be? Was it something like that?
When I was 18, I wanted to see, for some reason in grade school, I knew already I will be in America. But not because it's better or whatever. I said, I'm very interested in that culture. I want to experience it. And so when I was 18, I traveled the whole, like Americans go to Europe, travel Europe.
Yeah.
I traveled the States when I was 18 on a shoestring budget. And then I said, this is not enough. I think it's interesting, whatever, but it's not what I want to know about America.
Yeah.
And then I got a job, and then I worked here as a butler and house manager, managed the house, and was not a butler per se, but somebody that was serving running the household, basically.
This was in California?
Yeah, California.
Yeah. So
I had a job off in Boston, and one here, and I hated actually California, and I wasn't aware that Southern California was actually Los Angeles. I thought it was South LA where I worked, and I hated LA from my impression, that I had when I traveled.
Why, you didn't like the smog?
No, I liked the East Coast much better.
Yeah.
So I like New York, Boston, Philadelphia. I liked way more than California.
I hear you. Okay. I see. Yeah,
because I could relate to it. I couldn't relate to, because the LA that I saw in films wasn't the LA when I came here and 40 years ago.
Right. Yeah. Well, I know what you're saying. I mean, I've worked in California. I've worked in studios in LA, and it was never my jam. I just never felt like what you're saying. New York City, I get, because I grew up near here, near New York City, and I've been there like my whole life, off and on. But there's just it's a certain resonance, I think, that we adapt to, or we find compatible with what's inside of us. I think that where we're comfortable. I felt the same way about Nashville. I worked down there, but I'm not comfortable living in Nashville, but I love working there, because I'm in the throes of creativity. But I'd rather be in the woods, in the forests, or if it's a city, probably New York is a fave. So you establish this relationship with Robert Evans, and then did you work with him when he was working on the Godfather projects? Is it?
No, that was all afterwards. That was already afterwards.
Okay.
He was not anymore the president of Paramount. He had till his death, he had the Lubitsch studio. He had a studio he had his office at the Paramount lot.
Right.
And I think he never had was off the lot. He always had an office there because he was the longest, and they just gave him the respect that he was the longest and one of the most successful heads of the studio.
Yeah. So what were you doing with him? Did he so embrace your creativity and he realized the value you brought? What did you guys work on, or can you give us an idea what was going on with that?
This is so funny. It's just we resonated with each other for some reason. We really, literally, he said, after working with him for a week, and I had to go drive up. I was at Newport, and I had to drive up to him for work. And he said, and he offered me after literally a week to move into his house because he had a thing from his son. And I had my girlfriend down here and all this stuff. But he said, you can still be down on the weekend and just stay here and during the week. I mean, literally, it just clicked. It's just this. And I don't know. It wasn't. There was no. And this is why I like it so much, because it was a relationship that wasn't on what can you get me, what can I get from you,
right?
But it's just like, hey, I want to work with the experience, like that from art. It's about the experience to have with one. It's not about the money. The experience is the most, and no. He was a true artist.
Yeah, the money is not always. I don't think it. I think it's the least important thing when it comes to being creative. It's like you got to feel like you really get this person and you like and respect this person, both on both sides. Yeah. And then anything is possible after that, after you have that, Mm-hmm. So
and that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
You hit it on that's exact.
So then from there you ended up being how'd you get to be the city arts commissioner? I think that's so cool of Newport Beach.
So what I did is I was very much involved. They created a sculpture garden, and previously, before in the planning phases, I was very involved in the arts with the city. I said, if you do this we have to do this, and it was and I just visited the council meetings about the sculpture garden and about arts in the Newport Beach, about an art master plan of Newport Beach. And I was always a part of it because I was so interested in how I wanted to know everything about art. And that was always because it saved my life. And it was the only where I flourished. I didn't flourish in being an accountant. I flourished because of that. And obviously always had something in hospitality, because that's what we all have. We have to do a restaurant job to can afford art, and I was at all these meetings, and the councilman saw my involvement, and I spoke up, and I said, "This makes sense. This doesn't make sense." And one day, Tim Hedderton, the head of the library, which is responsible for the Arts Commission, and he said to me, "Why don't you run for art? Your stuff is so good. What you always bring in and help us." And he said, "Just fill out this form." And I filled out the form. And I kept doing what I did. I wasn't like filling out the form and waiting.
Right.
And I didn't get it the first election. I didn't get it, and the second election I didn't get it. And I wasn't. And they asked me after the second election, "Do you still want it?" I said, "Keep it in. I'm working with you anyway. It doesn't matter." And all of a sudden I got a phone call. I wasn't even thinking about it. And this is what I want to tell people, that I want to convey that, like I was in Cannes. It just happened. So I got a phone call and I said, "Michael, you got," and a mentor of mine called me and said, that you just got elected arts commissioner with 6 of 7 votes. Wow. And I said, "What? Is you rarely, and the 7th person didn't know me.
You wore them down. You wore them down. That's what happened.
Yeah.
Not only that,
it was
but
not consciously.
Yeah,
it was
I think they had a chance to see what you were doing, and more people got exposed to you and said, "What are we doing? We got the person right under our feet here. We didn't even know it, amongst us."
Yeah, it's always humans that help you. It's never a system or anything. It's because these people were, they were acquaintances then. They weren't friends or anything. They were acquaintances, and I worked with them, and they said, Yeah, he's good, and I did my citizen, I was a citizen of that city, and I did my job, my contribution that I could. I wasn't talking about plumbing in the city. I wasn't talking about, police work in the city, but I could talk about art,
Yeah.
and I was contributing to what I know, and and that's how that happened.
And
And then
when did you decide that you had an author in your spirit? Because you're the author of 5 books.
yeah.
So when did that occur to you? I should be writing. I can start putting out.
The dyslexia made me. Uh, I found when I dive into a topic, and when something really disturbs me. So my first book was the screenplay that while I was with Robert, uh, created, because he had me read a lot of scripts, go through a lot of projects, and discuss them. I mean, it was really a very harmonious relationship. I read the scripts, and then we discussed them. I said, and I was in that process, and I said, I can do something similar, and I knocked out that script, and then he wasn't interested because he had other projects. But I thought it was so good. That's another funny thing. I wasn't intent to sell that script at that time. I wrote the script, I rewrote the script, I wrote other scripts, and then I came back to this script again, and then I said, you know what? I think that's such a good story. I need to just release it as a book on Amazon.
Yeah.
And one day, and we kept in contact, Robert and I, for some reason. And when we talked, I said, he was thinking for scripts or something. And I said, I have my script. You read it and you liked it, but at that time you didn't need it. He said, send it again. And I sent it again. And that was just before he passed. And he said, I like it. I love it.
So this is the second time he read it, though, right? So
Yeah.
that tells me that it was good the first time, but this guy is so busy that he probably how many scripts he gets, I can't even imagine,
Yeah.
So I want to ask you a couple of things. First of all, when you're reading all these scripts, how do you navigate the challenges of both dyslexia and dysgraphia at the same time? And you're able to interpret everything, read all that, and then start writing your own things. Is this got to be an overwhelming challenge, or have you just navigated?
It was overwhelming.
Yeah,
it was overwhelming but scripts are easier to read. There's more space on a script when you read dialogue. It's not like a book.
Right.
It's very hard. It's basically how humans read, and it's great that question because I never thought about it. I just tell you the story, but I never thought about why. Because here I'm dyslexic and dysgraphia, and I have such a hard time. But human dialogue I can read, so I have no problems with humans. I have problems when I have to communicate through a system, through writing, through language or something. That's where I had the problem. But when I read dialogue, that was actually very easy for me to read.
So let me ask you this.
Fast.
So if I'm understanding you right, Michael, that when scripts are written, and I went to a television production school in New York City, so I'm familiar with the scripts that they would hand out when we were doing mock TV shows with all the equipment, and there's very little writing on each page because it's like, all right, John says, and then there's 2 lines, and then there's a huge white gap, and then Rachel replies. So that's more easy for you to digest because it takes you time to navigate the word structure, right? Yeah.
And also because it was humanly, it's a dialogue. It wasn't like a nonfiction explanation or a fiction explanation where you say, in the dark woods, the sun went down or whatever. That was not in there. It was just say he said, she said, basically.
Yeah.
And that is it was way easier for me to comprehend. And then he asked me to, it was almost in pre-production. I was there all the time in Paramount, and we created, and then he passed, he got sicker and sicker and he passed. But but it wasn't about creating, realizing the movie, because the movie was realized on the pages. It was the wonder of how things happen to me,
Yeah.
So I'm not like frustrated that I never actually produced a movie, because who knows, it could have been the worst movie ever. And but I'm happy how it goes. And that doesn't mean, my book is on Amazon. It doesn't mean that it will never be produced. It just has to fit. But
Right.
I wanted to tell creative people that listen to you that it is about milking every moment that you have in creation.
Yeah.
And it's not about the outcome. When you ask, I know so many people that have Oscars, Grammys, gold medals of Olympics. They get that, and their whole focus and the whole goal. And that's why I wrote to you, I don't have goals. I
Yeah.
milk the moment, It
Right.
doesn't work for me, because you work for this and you only have that in mind, and you miss all this stuff, like you and I talking right now. I'm milking that moment.
Right.
And you miss all that stuff because you're thinking about, I gotta get viewers, I gotta get listeners, I gotta get all these system goals. And we are human beings and not human doings,
Yeah.
That's and that's what that's why I'm happy with whatever it is,
Well,
because
you've
I
mastered,
enjoy it.
yeah, you've mastered the science of living in the moment, and it's so right, because everyone thinks there's this destination you're going to get to, and then
Yeah.
everything will be taken care of, and then I won't have any more anxiety or any more angst, because
Yeah.
I'll get to that place. And you're right, it never happens. It never
Yeah.
happens. The only thing I think you can do is go for goals that you want, but once you get a goal, that's just growth, and then you
Yeah.
you create a new goal after that. But
Yeah.
you hit it on the head when you said it's living in the moment, because that's the beauty. I don't care if you're writing a script or making a movie, making a record. It's the creation of it and being in that flow that is the joy. It's just and a lot of people miss out on that. They're always trying to attain and attain and attain, and it's the old hamster wheel, right? You never get there.
Yep.
Hey, let's talk a little bit about your podcast, The Smart of Art, or is it The Smart of Art or The Power of Art?
Excuse me. Smart of Art.
So this is a really, really interesting thing, because Michael has created the 30-second podcast. It's like, I've never heard such a thing. That's awesome.
I'm sorry, I've just got over a cold.
That's okay.
Yeah, I did. I because of my dyslexia, I cannot do editing. And to make it work, and I cannot prepare for a podcast. So I couldn't read your notes and then ask you. It's too intricate, that process for me.
Yeah.
And it's too systemic, the process. So
Right.
what I was thinking is, I take quotes of my books, and this is also a way of how I work. I have things that I think, and I dictate it into a voice recorder, and then I transcribe it on the computer. And I find out of this, and then I clean it up, and it becomes a quote. And I like that, because the condensation and the creative process of condensing, expanding first the thought and then condensing, and honing that thought that it vibrates the right way for me. And I thought, artists don't want to write. And I know from my books, the people love talking to me, but they not want to read my books. That is in general artists, But then some artists come and say, this is a great book. But basically it is artists. And that's why I say, get the Kindle book for $3. and have it read to you while you're doing your music or while you're painting.
Yeah.
And I thought that for a quote, everybody has the time. And then I add also a question about this quote for you to answer as a creative. Because I found this combination is really helpful. And it's like a mentoring from somebody that, because we have no mentoring anymore in that artist, art was always about mentoring, about the master is telling the student, and then the student becomes the master. It's always and especially creativity, that was important. And I like to seed a lot. I like to seed thoughts, creativity, and so on and so on and so on. And I found that people respond better to a quote than when I, let's say, have a podcast and then ask him to listen to this, because nobody has time. As you know, we do unbelievable podcasts, which is important, but very few people have the time to listen to them,
Right. The runners, the joggers. I find that the best time for me is long car trips. I binge out on podcasts then, because it's like I want to learn something or be entertained, while I'm driving long distance. Yeah, I've got it up here, the Smart of Art podcast. So, folks, you can check that out and listen to what Michaell puts in there, quotes and interesting things. Hey, guys, we're getting near the end. I want to ask you, what's the best part of your day, Michaell? What do you enjoy thoroughly more than anything else in your life? It doesn't have to be work, but what do you really love to do?
I love to observe. I love to observe. I love to be in a moment. So, for example, meeting another human like you, for example, this is what I love. It's the unknown. It is the exploration. It's the risk to meet another human being, and then converse with that.
That's interesting that you said the risk. That's very cool, because there is a risk. I mean, I'm risking my personality and my time, and people have such value on their time. But I never looked at it that way. But it's a really cool way to put it. The risk.
In this world where you're only typing to each other, and that's very safe, is to expose yourself to another human becomes a risk. Shouldn't be a risk, but it is. It's a risk. And I must tell you, I've never had anybody that I couldn't converse. You can have a total different opinion, total different belief, but we have all our senses to be with each other, and to exchange. And we don't have to be best friends or whatever. It's just a wonderful experience to be with another human being. I mean, it's the most valuable. I don't think there's anything in this world more valuable than meeting a new human being and conversing and exchanging knowledge and life experience. I think there is nothing on this planet that is more valuable.
Yeah, I agree.
Money. It's not. It's the other human is and the reflection, because I see when you start looking at other people, a reflection of you. If you hate them or like them, it doesn't matter. And that's a wonderful, you learn a lot.
Yeah, it's, I think you're right. And doing it through a medium such as art is a fabulous way to do it, because, anybody I ever recorded with or played on stage with, I still have that connection through music with them. And also the podcast has brought so many friendships. You can pick up with somebody 8 years ago. I did a podcast with somebody you can pick up right again. And continue on the foundation that we built in that first hour, which I'm hopeful that you and I can do the same thing. Yeah. Absolutely.
And art always brings you back to the human blueprint of what is possible. Nothing, no job, nothing gets you to the blueprint of what is possible than creating art.
Yeah.
There's nothing, and that's why I say the creation process of art is a godly process. It's you want to be in touch with God and spirituality.
Yes.
Create. That is the absolutely, and you don't need to go to a religion. You don't need to go to a course or anything. Just sit with somebody alone and create something.
Yeah.
And the feedback that you get with that creation, and sometimes the ego is gets in there. Then just put the stuff away and look at it 3 months ago, and then look and if you want to discard it, for example.
Yeah.
I painted paintings that I hated. I put them away, pull them out 3 months later, and my ego is out of the way because I look at it like I would have looked at your painting. And I said, oh my God, that is really good. But I couldn't see it in a moment,
Yeah. We think a lot alike in some ways. I do that with music. And also you mentioned about God being involved. He's involved in everything. And one of the greatest gifts he gave us is what he has, which is the super creative. And there's nothing more, I always say it's love, family, and creativity, because what a blessing that is. How could we even function without it? And everyone has it. I don't care if you're an accountant, a lawyer, sweeping the floor somewhere. We all have that gene of creativity inside of us, As we're wrapping up, I want to give you the last word, Michael. Anything you want to say to the people following us out there and listening to this broadcast, any kind of wisdom you would like to put on somebody, any challenges, anything at all you would like to say as we part ways?
Awareness trumps all, because I'm a creativity awareness educator. Awareness trumps all, because there are no steps. Because once you're aware of something, like you burn yourself on a stove, you fall in love. It doesn't matter how many books you read about love if you don't know what it is to fall in love. What the feeling of love is. It doesn't help you to read anything. All knowledge doesn't help you. You can tell your child 1,000,000 times that you shouldn't touch the stove. The moment it touches the stove, it never needs to read a book, fixed steps, or it will know for the rest of its life. A heat can burn you. And we have 6 senses. All humans have those, and use them for awareness. And then that's how you navigate. I have no education. I learned everything from creation.
Amen. Michael, this was awesome. I want to thank you so much for taking time out to be on Podcasting Your Global Career. It was a pleasure to meet you. And I want to ask God's blessings on all you do, all of your career, all of your creativity, Vienna and your family. And it was a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you for giving me a canvas.
Hey, everybody. Thanks once again for being here on Podcasting Your Global Career. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please check out the show notes to support the people we put on this show. Also, if you're digging the show, forward it to a friend. And you can also subscribe to us in the Apple Podcasts. We would appreciate it. I'm your host, James Kevin O'Connor. So until the next time when we meet again, I'll either see you on the socials or I'll see you from the stage.
Ride on, baby, won't you take a ride with me? Ride on, we can untangle all the mystery. If wishes were windows, I'd open one and find that freedom is really a simple state of mind. So ride on, baby, won't you take a ride with me? Ride on, we can untangle all the mystery. Ride on, baby, you and I can find the key. Ride on, we can unlock each other's destiny. I taste the breeze of freedom. freedom, it's tingling on my tongue. You and I out on the road will stay forever young. We'll stay forever young. So ride on, baby, won't you take a ride with me? Ride on, we can untangle all the mystery. Ride on, baby, you and I can find the key. Ride on, we can unlock each other's destiny. I'll take you places that you've never seen. I'll take you places that you never dreamed. I'll take you places that were pictures in your mind. I'll take you places beyond the reach of time. So ride on, baby, won't you take a ride with me? Ride on, we can untangle all the mystery.